Hello and welcome to Electrifying. I've surprised myself a bit this week, you know.
You got your credit card bill from going shopping.
No, not that. No, not that. Quite the opposite thing, actually, Nicola. I have found myself getting more excited about affordable electric cars.
I'm the same. I'm literally the same. I mean, it's been so long of £100,000 electric SUVs. We have been crying out for affordable EVs.
Literally crying.
Literally crying out, and it's finally happening. So today, we're going to round them up for you.
We are indeed, and luckily for us, we have our special money-saving correspondent here with us today, the master of the markdown, the champion of cheap,
AKA Budget Barnard.
Hello, Tom.
Is that going to be on my gravestone? I'm not sure about that introduction, but I do indeed have a long list of the cheapest electric cars.
Was the introduction fair?
Yes, I am a bit of a tightwad. Yes, that is true.
Yeah. It's fair. It was fair. But yeah, we're very happy about that.
Yeah, so I've got a long list of cars that are currently on sale, but also some that are just over the horizon.
Okay, I'll tell you what, before we delve into it, make sure you subscribe to the Electrifying YouTube channel, please, because you don't want to miss a review of lovely, affordable EVs, do you? No, of course you don't. Right, come on then, Tom. What you got first?
Well, the first one has to be Dacia Spring. Starting price, £14,999. So you get £1 back from your 15 grand, and electric cars don't get any cheaper. Cars, not quadricycles and things. So that gets you a 27 kilowatt hour battery and a stonking efficiency. So in theory, you'll get more than 5 miles from every kilowatt hour of electricity, which I don't think can be bettered at the moment.
It's a modest range, isn't it?
It's 130 miles, so that's, you know.
But, you know, we talk all the time, don't we, about electric, we drive on average in the UK 20 miles a day. And actually the way to get out of this cycle of buying big, massive SUVs and manufacturers making big massive SUVs with massive batteries is to stop buying them and actually to buy cars with smaller batteries like the Spring, which are perfectly enough for most of us for the driving we do.
And actually, I drove the Spring. I went out to the launch and they said it's not just 20 miles a day. The average person that will be buying a Spring will be doing 23 miles an hour. That's it. So it doesn't need to be. It's a little, it's a little city car. They said 75% of people will be charging from home. Little city car, doesn't need to go too far, doesn't need to go too fast. That's it.
I mean, I think it's fair to say we are all massive fans of the Spring, but I think for me the question that remains is it hasn't had Euro NCAP testing yet, has it? You know, it's got a lot more safety kit on it than the previous model had. I think that's something that we're all waiting to see is what happens with that car when it gets those Euro NCAP scores, which are safety scores.
Okay, here's a question for you.
Okay.
So on finance, PCP finance, the 45, which is the 45 horsepower cheapest version, is £169 per month.
Ooh.
Or for an extra tenner a month, you can have the 65 version, so an extra whopping 20 horsepower more.
What?
Would you pay the extra tenner?
Yes. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Well, would you pay the extra tenner is the question. Would Bargain Barnard or Budget Barnard pay the extra tenner?
I suppose it depends where you live. If you live in town, 45 horsepower is going to be fine because you're just going to go up to 30 miles an hour.
I think, to be honest, that bit of extra punch, because you might not always be in town. I know they're saying it's 23 miles an hour on average, but there will undoubtedly be times where you do need to overtake, and it's going to feel pretty weedy, isn't it? With just, you know,
£10 a month. I mean, what's that? That's a couple of coffees. And I drove the 65, and you can do overtakes. You can do it. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we're off to a great start. Hard one to follow. What is next on your list?
Next on my list is the Citroen EC3, which I haven't driven, but you have both driven, or one of you's driven it?
I've driven it.
I've seen it. So I did the walk around video and then you went out to drive it.
Yeah.
And it's,
I love that car. I think it's a brilliant car. It's under £22,000. You've got almost 200 miles of range. I mean, it's so usable for drivers. And I think it's going to fit people's lives so well. I mean, it charges pretty well as well. It's a good all-rounder.
It's a great car. And I think the thing that I love is, of course, it doesn't look like the Citroen Ollie, because that was, and if you haven't checked out our video of the Citroen Ollie, which is here on YouTube, do on the channel, go and check that out. It doesn't look like that, but it's got hints of it, and it just reminds me of that car. And Citroen are doing some really bold, interesting stuff, I think. So yeah, I think that is a car that we absolutely love. And of course it has the Aircross as well, doesn't it?
Well, yeah, I get a bit confused with the Aircross, because the Aircross normally on a Citroen is just kind of one of the other models, but jacked up a bit with some cladding on to make it look a bit off-roady. But it's a completely different car, isn't it? Or at least it's bigger.
It's bigger. It is bigger. It's about 38 centimetres bigger, and it is taller as well. So there's a lot more room in it. It's much boxier. And I think the boot is absolutely massive on the Aircross. It's about a suitcase larger than an ID3.
Wow.
So if you're a family of 4, that makes all the difference when you're packing for your holidays. I was thinking, though, it's been bugging me because the C3 Aircross has reminded me of another car. And I've been looking at different pictures I remember, and I think it is Dacia Duster. It gives me Dacia Duster vibes, which is not a bad thing because I love the Dacia Duster.
I can't see it.
Can you not see that?
I can't see it.
Oh, okay. Okay, and it's, okay, all right, well, that's just me. If you think the Dacia Duster reminds you a bit of the C3 Aircross, then no? Okay,
Maybe.
Just me.
Will the Aircross still qualify for our cheap car thing, or is it going to be a lot more?
Yeah, I think it's going to be around 25,000 here in the UK is what we're expecting. So definitely, yeah, absolutely. Yes, go on.
Can I do the next one?
You can do the next one.
Thank you. Very close relation, actually, to the Aircross. The Vauxhall Frontera.
Oh, but not the one from the 1990s.
I am too young to remember that one, Ginny.
God, that's so depressing.
I know.
Do you remember that one?
I do.
Okay, good. I feel slightly
Yeah,
better
sorry,
then.
I am so youthful. I mean, it shares a lot of the same bits with the Citroen. It's got a massive amount of space inside. It's got around a 250-mile range, and it will cost you around £27,000.
Now, the thing that worries me with those, the EC3 and the Frontera, is that the motor was 111 horsepower, which used to be plenty, but in electric cars these days, I mean, you get 200 in some of the rivals, don't you? And they're heavy. So if you think of a Frontera with 5 people and it's big enough to take big teenagers, and you loaded it up like I saw this morning with bikes on the roof and all your stuff for holiday, that's going up a motorway incline. That's going to be a bit.
That's a good point. Yeah, it's a bit underpowered, that, isn't it? But I think there's another couple of Vauxhalls that we don't talk about enough, and we've kind of almost forgotten about them a bit. And when we first launched Electrifying, we ran these cars as long-termers. We talked about them loads, and that was the Corsa and the Mokka.
I always forget about the Mokka.
I know. Most people do forget about the Mokka. And you know, we used to say for not for fairly good reason, but there are some really good lease deals on these cars now, aren't there? So over to the man with the spreadsheets.
Well, yeah, I know a lot about the Mokka because I'm constantly looking at these deals, and it's always on there. So right now, using the same criteria which I always use, which is a 6-month deposit, a 3-year deal, and 8,000 miles per year. Top of the range Corsa electric, £225 per month.
Ooh.
But the Mokka, £218 per month. It's cheaper.
Oh, I'd rather have the Mokka.
No, it's a mid-range GS versus the Ultimate on the Corsa. But which would you rather have? I mean,
have they got the old battery?
Yes, it is the older battery. So they're clearing out the stocks of that, and the new one's much more efficient, and it's got better battery, better motor. So it's an extra sort of 20, 30 miles of range.
If I had the Mokka, would it have to be that green colour?
I quite like the green colour.
No one wants that green colour.
Brightest colour of any car.
Do you like it?
I like that green colour.
I don't
really like it.
I don't mind it, actually. I don't mind. Which would you have, the Corsa or the Mokka?
I'd have a Mokka.
If it had to be green. Okay. Shall we move on? Let's move on.
Okay, all right. Talking of old Vauxhalls, I'm going to throw this one out there. BYD Dolphin.
How's that related to a Vauxhall?
Yeah, I was just figuring that one out. How is that related to it? I just went, yes.
So, recently there was a video that me and Nikki did together, and Nikki compared it with an old Mariva, and now I just can't unsee it. It's all I see. It's all I see. So the cheapest Dolphin is meant to start at £26,196 for the active model. That has a 44.9 kilowatt hour battery. It's got a 93 horsepower motor. Then you've got the Boost, which is £27,195. That has a more powerful 178 horsepower motor and bigger wheels. But there is a but, and it's a big old juicy but. Good old butt you want to squeeze. So far, we've only seen the Comfort version, which has the bigger 60.4 kilowatt hour battery, 204 brake horsepower motor, and that annoyingly busts the £30,000 barrier.
So you basically your choice is disqualified.
I've just spoken myself out of it, yeah.
Yeah, because we are driving those affordable models in September.
Yeah.
If you're watching this video after September 2024, we will have a video of them here on the YouTube channel, and then your choice will actually be allowed.
Yes.
So if you're watching this before September, that's not allowed. If you're watching it after, it is allowed. Okay, does that make sense?
Well, I've got one that's definitely not disqualified.
Okay, go on.
Fiat 500e. So currently 24,995, but at the moment Fiat will throw you £3,000 after you bought one, which brings the price down to under 22 grand, doesn't it?
That is good.
Is that the one with the little diddy battery though?
Well, yes, it is. Okay. If you want the bigger battery, which has kind of more than 200 miles range, then you have to give you £3,000 back, and then they'll upgrade you to the bigger one.
How much is the range? It's what,
118, I think.
Bless it. Do you remember when that car first came out? And it was the year we launched Electrifying, so it was 2020, and it was under £20,000.
Yeah.
And it just felt like, wow, this is what we've wanted for so long, and it didn't stay at that price for long, did it?
No.
It was the small battery version. They took that off the range.
Grant as well, didn't it?
And the grant went, but actually, that's effectively back to that kind of price, isn't it? It's a lovely car, that, for the money. Whether that range is enough for you, but it's a lovely car.
I like it. For me, it's just that creepy clown music whenever you turn the car off.
Didn't they pay some composer a fortune for that?
Honestly.
He goes, blim, 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 blim. Like it's a creepy clown. And every time, when I had one, I turned the car off at night and scared myself and had to run in the house.
Do you know who composed that music?
Who?
Nino Rotto, who composed the music to The Godfather. You
Well,
can't
that's
call it
scary
creepy
as well,
clown
isn't it?
music.
That's why it's creepy.
Yeah.
So I shouldn't be scared of the clowns. I should be scared of the mobsters that are coming to get me. That's what it is.
Okay, creepy clown music aside, if you do go for the bigger batteried car, it's the same price as an MG4.
Yeah.
Which I know isn't as cute and lovely looking as the Fiat, but it is a proper family car with a range of up to, 220 miles? So the cheapest MG4 is 26,000 currently, £995. That's nearly £1,500 cheaper than the cheapest Ford Focus with a petrol engine.
It's good value. One thing I will say, that it does look cheap on the price, but on the monthly payments on the MG4, it can be more than other rivals. They don't offer big discounts. I mean, they can sell them without them, apparently, while other rivals are trying to sort of trying to reach targets and stuff. MG4 are like, no, these are our prices. And deal with it.
If you're wondering about the targets, that's because if you're watching here in the UK, we have a thing called the ZEV mandate, that we love an acronym, the Zero Emission Vehicle Mandate the government has brought in from January 2024, which says that car makers have to ensure that a certain percentage of their fleet is electric. And you have some car makers like MG and Kia and Hyundai and BMW who are doing brilliant with that and they're smashing it, and others who aren't, hence the discounting. So there's some interesting deals around because of that, aren't there, Tom?
If you want big discounts, look at Nissan.
Really?
Yeah, so you know the Leaf's been out of production for a few months now.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry, Tom. I know it's really sad for you because I know that you love the Leaf so much.
Bless Tom.
Yes, moment of silence. So they're obviously trying to clear out the stock so that they've got in dealerships and probably in fields somewhere. So there are...
What, under trees or on trees? In fields on trees?
Because it's the Leaf. I see what you did there. That's very clever.
All right.
So the list price on the Leaf, the cheapest Leaf, 28,495, yeah?
Okay.
Cheapest I found, 17,490.
What? That's got to be, pre-registered?
Nope, that is a brand new car.
No.
You'll be the first. So if you want a pre-registered one that's been registered by a dealer or has been hanging around for a while, but still has delivery mileage, you can knock another £5,000 off that. So there's 12, 13 grand for essentially a brand new car with like 10 miles on the clock.
Very good. Can we talk about a bit of an elephant in the room about the Nissan Leaf? Is it CHAdeMO? So there's a move away from CHAdeMO, isn't there? Is that going to impact on owners down the line as more and more chargers just ditch CHAdeMO and there are less options for public charging?
I
What do we
think
on
it's
that?
probably like, I mean, even now, if you go to charge at a CHAdeMO, there'll be 12 chargers and maybe only 5 of them will have CHAdeMO on, and inevitably people are just, they don't think about it before they do that. And they're slower. But there are a lot of people, I mean, I've had a Leaf for however many years, and the amount of times I've charged at a rapid charger is minimal because we just use it for poodling around. So it depends. I mean, occasionally, if you just need to do it, it's not going to be a problem. If you're fast charging all the time, it's an issue.
You love it so much, don't you? I can just see it in your eyes.
I remember we were here when we found out that the Leaf was being, they were stopping production of the Leaf up in Sunderland. We were sitting almost in these very places, and Tom had a tear in his eye. He did. Anyway, bargains on the Leaf, and the scary thing is actually that now brings the Leaf in at the price of another electric car that technically isn't a car because it's a quadricycle, which you will find being sold in Nissan's showroom shortly, which is the Silence 0404, I never remember which way you call it. That's £15,995, and it's a quadricycle. It's basically...
It's an AMI.
It's an AMI, exactly. It can go a bit faster than an AMI. So I've driven one. I've spent a bit of time in one. I drove one up in Manchester.
How fast did that go then?
Oh, now you're asking me. I
think it's meant to do over 50.
50,
I think it's
yeah.
51, something like that.
But again, it's like coming back to that point you made about the Dacia Spring, 23 miles an hour. I drove it in a low emission zone in central Manchester where there are 20 mile per hour speed limits on those roads. I drove it in central London in Westminster where you're never getting much below 20 anyway. I think what I did notice is it feels more substantial than the AMI. It felt more like a car. It felt a bit more stable, and it definitely had a bit more punch as well. So I didn't have that feeling of, oh God, all the cars are queuing behind me.
You do get that feeling in the AMI.
You do get that feeling in the AMI.
I think the most interesting bit of that Silence is the batteries. So it's got 2 batteries which you pull them out and they go onto like a trolley, so you can wheel them around like a suitcase.
Yeah.
And then you can take them inside. So if you worked in an office, you can take them up in the lift and then charge them under your desk, or you can take it into your house and charge them. Or in Spain, they've got 1,000 battery swap stations, and you can, 30 seconds, just charge them, take a battery and swap them in and out.
It's clever if you live in the centre of a town and you haven't got access to charging, and what you're after is like a run around getting the kids to school that's a bit more substantial, and then you can just take that battery in and charge it, or you live in a flat in the centre of a town. I think there's a really interesting use case. I do think it's a lot though, I think, for what it is.
Actually, now you've brought up the flat thing, I can totally see it. Because, I mean, I like it, but it's only if you really necessarily need that feature. I mean, there's other cars, for less or not much more, at least.
Okay, yes, there are, like the MX-30.
Are we actually going to talk about
what
it?
What are we hiding our heads for?
Just don't.
Okay, I know.
You do it.
I know.
Over to you.
Okay, I'll explain this, right? So we ran an MX-30 for quite a while when it was new, and we actually not long after we'd launched the channel, and we thought it was absolutely great until it ran out of charge, or the 12-volt battery went on it, which it did quite a lot, didn't it? We were getting double figures on the range.
Yeah, in cold weather it was less than 100 miles.
Less than 100 miles. It was in like 90.
And it would charge really slowly as well. So I'd
really
come
slowly
here to do some filming and then would have to stop at the services, and I'd plug into an Ionity and it would say 9 kilowatts. It was like it was at 10%, and it would go 9 kilowatts. There was nothing wrong with it. That was just what it did.
Which, I mean, it makes sense for buyers who want like a little SUV with funny little doors, but you don't need to drive it far. Are they? How cheap are they?
Well,
what's the price of them?
Yeah, before I get on to the price of it was very practical space-wise. So I once had 4...
She's going to mention the rowers now. She mentions this a lot.
I had rowers staying with me. They were all very tall, 6'4", 6'5", 6'6", and I had 4 of them in the car, 3 of them in the back. They had enough headroom.
You had rowers come and stay with you?
Yeah.
Why?
It's a long story. I'll move on to the price. The price is £27,995 officially. But
that's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money. If you buy it on finance, guess how much Mazda will put down? And you can have...
I'm hoping they're going to put down £27,000 and you've only got to pay $995.
You're being mean about this car. They will put in £6,000 and you'll get it on 0% finance. Oh, and then we'll pay for a home charger to be fitted too.
Which is probably £1,000 worth, isn't it?
Honestly, I think it's
it's sounding a little more tempting now, isn't it? I mean,
look, you get a free charge, 0% finance, a £6,000 deposit contribution, and I can testify you can fit 4 very tall rowers in it.
Okay.
And me driving.
All right, fine. All right, so talking of numbers, tell us about the 5, Ginny.
Oh.
Yeah.
Am I the only one who's seen the 5?
Yeah.
I saw it at Geneva.
Oh no, I walked past one at a tennis thing which I went to with Renault, and it was beautiful.
It is. I mean, that car is filling all of us here with joy.
Yes.
I think lucky Vicky will be the first to drive it for a review. I'm going out to film with it and drive it in early October. I literally can't wait. And I think what we love unanimously about the car is that they've just not done the silly pastiche of an old car, nor have they done what Ford did with the Capri, which is make it into something unrecognisable. You kind of know it's a Renault 5. It's got really cool cues on there that, you know, remind you of the old car, but they're all done in such a modern way. And I absolutely adore the fact it's got the light on the front, the bars on the front that show you how much charge you've got left in your battery.
Yeah.
So it's an illuminated 5 made up of lines of illumination, and the lines drop as you run out of charge. I just love it.
My memories of the Renault 5, I'm totally showing I'm a millennial. My memories of the Renault 5 is watching Ali G drive around it in the film Into House. So all I want to do is drive the new Renault 5, and I want to listen to the soundtrack because it's like the best film soundtrack ever made.
I think we can make that happen
That's all
for
I
you.
Do.
We can do. Can we do that for her?
I'm sure we can.
Do that.
Yeah.
But on top of that, you know, £25,000 price tag, 250 miles of range. It feels really nicely built, really nicely put together. I don't know what you've seen it as well.
Yeah, I mean, I love it. I think it's going to be great, that car, isn't it? It's I mean, there's some bits that maybe feel a little bit cheap, but that's nitpicking. I think it's going to be a real smashing car.
And it has a baguette basket.
And yes, it does.
I rest my case.
I mean, if those are cars that we're looking forward to, I mean, other cars we're looking forward to, the Hyundai Inster, which I haven't seen yet in person. I've only watched your video on it. I've just seen some photos as well. But I'm looking forward to seeing it. Tom?
Yeah. I think that car, the interesting thing about it, other than the size and the range and everything else, is the quality inside. So everyone says, oh, well, you know, you can't complain about the interior quality of X and Y because it's a cheap car. But the Insta's an inexpensive car, but feels like an expensive car.
Honestly, it blows that argument out of the water. It's got safety kit from the Ioniqs 5 and 6. It's got the steering wheel from the Ioniq 5. It's got so much space, but it does have this feeling of, you know, this is not a car, surely, that, you know, starts at £22,000. It doesn't feel like that at all. You don't feel like you're compromising. And again, you know, decent range as well. So only 180 to 220 miles.
That'll do.
Really usable range. About the size of a Dacia Spring, tiny bit smaller than a Citroen EC3. So it is that great little city car. And again, we haven't driven it yet, although we have seen it, but we will be driving that in September. So if you are watching this after September, do go and check out the driving video that we've got, first drive of that car as well.
I've got another one.
Go on.
Volkswagen ID2. It is a couple of years off.
Oh yeah, you saw that about 16 years ago, didn't you?
I did.
Weren't you 12 when you went to see that car?
We've been waiting for this car forever.
Oh, it's like the Puma. It's like the Ford Puma.
Yeah.
Oh, come on up with the ID2. Like, why have they got all these great cars out and Volkswagen is still like 27 years later not got the ID2?
The ID2 is coming. They've been saying for 5 years.
Yeah,
you won't have a licence anymore by the time that car comes out. You'll be too old.
HR. Well, we've been promised it will be £22,000, which will probably be the price of a Mars bar by the time it comes up. But I think it's a slightly staid-looking car. I said so at the time, and in 2 years' time, it's going to look like a kind of retro, isn't it? Because it's so. I
know, but they did some like random stuff with the ID3, didn't it? And everybody went, "Well, what really? Was that a good idea?" And I think they've just been a bit scared by that. I didn't mind it, but I completely agree with you. By the time it finally arrives, it's just a bit like, oh, okay, here you are. All right, next.
Finally. I have a curveball.
Oh, God, of course you do.
It's a brand new electric car, which I can see just here. It's £22,500. It's a big SUV.
What's she doing?
It's got 288 miles of range. And I know that you love it, Ginny.
Oh?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can't really think of anything, but look on, just say again. How much? 22?
£22,500. Big SUV, 288 miles of range. No?
No.
It's the Fisker Ocean.
Oh, bless the
anyone
Fisker Ocean.
Do you want to?
That's a bit mean.
No?
That's a bit mean bringing that up.
22.5 grand though. You've got to be a little bit tempted by that.
That's such an interesting one, this, isn't it? Because in case you've been hiding under a rock for the last 6 months, Fisker has had quite big financial difficulties and has found out that building cars is actually harder than, you might think. But that means there is a fire sale on now. However, there's a catch, isn't there, Tom?
Well, I mean, you can drive this car and it will be fine, but if you broke a windscreen or if the software goes pop or there's a warranty issue, or you scrape a wheel, what are you going to do? I mean, they're just...
Buy parts from other cars that will hopefully fit.
Make your own windscreen by smelting glass in the oven.
It's a lot of car for £22,500, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a huge car. It's a
Until
big
you can't
SUV.
drive it anymore because it doesn't work. That's the problem. You could live in it.
Oh, we're ending the video on a sad note now.
Sorry, everyone.
Okay. Let us know what you think in the comments below. Would you be tempted by the Fisker Ocean at that price, or would just the concerns that we've outlined, would that put you off? I'd love to know if anybody's actually going to go for it and buy one.
There's someone that lives around the corner from me that's got one.
Oh, really?
Yeah, spotted it outside the co-op. Couldn't believe
Go
it.
and knock on their door and ask them how they feel.
When I see them out next, if I spot them next to the car, I'm going to go and have a chat with them.
Okay, yeah, okay. Right, so on that note, we'll wrap things up. Do let us know what you think about all those cars. What are you excited about seeing? Which of our roundup would tempt you the most?
Did we miss anything?
We probably did.
Did we? Let us know in the comments.
And as always, while you're there, do the thing. Please subscribe.
Thank you.
Bye.